You are an Iron Man!
We are now at episode 30, and I'm very happy to be joined today by Mark Farquhar. Mark, thank you very much for agreeing to come on to the podcast.
Cheers, Mickey. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Mark, I can't help but notice that you're sporting a bit of an injury there. What has happened to you?
2024 hasn't been good to me. I've had a few illnesses this year, and I thought a few of us recently there thought we'd go out to Mallorca for a few days biking, and had a bit of a spill last week in Mallorca. So I've broke a bone in my wrist and a bit of road rash down the leg. So it just cements the terrible year I've had so far. But have to stay positive. 10 good years of racing and triathlon. I'm just taking the positives out of it. So get them all done in 1 year and get it all over and done with.
So have you had a couple of injuries this year then, or just health related issues, or what's the crack?
Yeah. I started the year really well. Did Portadown half marathon and had a personal best in Portadown in March, I think it was, 1:24, and I was kicking on. Running was picking up pretty well, and then I was hit with a chest infection. So I've had 4 chest infections and an ear infection, and now a broken wrist. So it's wiped out the entire year. But look, it is what it is. It doesn't get me down too much, but it just makes me hungrier for next year. And it's allowed me to do other things, mostly my coaching and focusing on my athletes a lot more this year. So you try to flip it a wee bit and try to stay positive about it.
Every cloud has a silver lining and all that.
That's exactly right, yeah.
I wonder what the story is with all the infections. Have you been pushing things maybe a bit too hard? I know sometimes if we push too hard, it can actually, if I'm right, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, I'm not medically trained, but your immune system can take a bit of a hit if you give her too much, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I used to be asthmatic when I was younger, and I've sort of grew out of that, but I'm always prone to a chest infection. Surprisingly, last winter I took a good downtime at the end of the season and a good break. At a good 8 weeks break, really pulled things back, and then I eased into this year and had a really gradual build into the year. So it sort of confused me a wee bit. Try to get bloods and stuff done, and do you know what it's like with trying to get appointments with GPs and so on. But I've been taking some zinc. That GP recommended some zinc supplements, and they seem to be helping. So at least I'm 2 months clear now of a chest infection in 4 months. So I'm clear of chest infections, but then I go and tumble off a bike. So I'm going to get a set of stabilizers maybe for winter training. Maybe I'll just stick to the
stabilizers. Absolutely. One of my things I don't mind sharing it is I would take some vitamin supplements as well. And there's a company here in Oma called Vitalize, and they do IV infusions and stuff like that. You can get high dose vitamin C and all sorts of concoctions. Got me through a few sticky times, but maybe that might be something worth thinking about. You know what? I'll pop a wee link to them maybe in the description tag, and anybody that's interested can have a wee look at that. Mark, you have been on the triathlon scene by your own account there from over 10 years now, and it's an exciting CV of achievements that I have here before me. You know, because you and I have been chatting before this podcast. But what I would love to do is just go back in time before the triathlon years. Cause I'm always very interested in the journeys. And your journey in particular is one that's intriguing because I suppose many people would know that you would have been a rugby player back in the day, and you would have been a very, very different man in terms of your physique and your stature and your fitness and everything. So you've really changed over the years from, well, I'll hand it over to you in your own words, where you were and where you are now, and the difference between your training and your physicality and your strength And anything maybe that you took from rugby that you've been able to transfer across into triathlon would be worth chatting about.
Yeah. My wife says to me, and it's my wedding anniversary today, but my wife says to me, I'm only half the man I used to be. Probably the biggest transformation, Mickey, would be that I was touching on 20 stones at one stage in weight, in around 19 and a half, 20 stones, and I'm normally now in around about 13 stones, so that's about 40 kgs. So it's a good drop in body weight, and that was because I played rugby and I was a rugby prop back in the day, and totally different style of training, and played at a good level. I played for Dungannon and played All Ireland Division 1 for many's a year, and at number 3 tight head prop. I was one of the fatties, as we were called. So the fatties were the big guys that done all the pushing, and then you had the fancy backs that done all the running and scoring and took all the glory. So yeah, played with Dungannon, won Ulster League titles, played in All Ireland Cup final, won many cups and leagues with Dungannon. But unfortunately, about 12, 13 years ago, I started to get some nerve damage in my neck and my shoulders. And they kept saying to me, Mark, we're going to have to slow things down a wee bit. I'm 30 years of age at this stage, and I was thinking, well, I'm coming into my prime as a prop. You're coming into your prime at that stage. And I was playing the best rugby of my life. Training at that stage, I thought was a lot. It was 3 or 4 days a week, which is nothing really compared to triathlon, as I'm sure you know. And it sort of lingered for about a year and a half. It just got worse, and I started losing the feeling in my right hand and my arm, and pins and needles in my neck, and it went on and on, to the extent where the physio said to me, "You're going to have to think about hanging up the boots." But nobody wants to hear that at 30 years of age. You're thinking, like, this is over. I'm an old man now. You start reading reports in newspapers, veteran prop, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, where's this going? So it went on a bit more, and then I had a fairly severe concussion that I bluffed. And it's ironic because I was sitting on a concussions subgroup recently to develop a concussion policy, and it made me think back to them days when I was concussed and I bluffed it over, and then I had another bang to the head 2 weeks later when I was out cold, and I had to confess that I had a concussion 2 weeks beforehand. It's nothing to be messed about with. And at that stage, between the double concussions and a broken nose, nerve damage in the arm and neck, bulging discs in my neck, I just thought the time was right. I needed to hang up the boots. 2 young kids, it's not worth it. Every parent has the dream of kicking a football around the front garden with your kids, and flashes of maybe not happening down the line worried me. So it's quite ironic today then that I've my arms in a splint and I'm injured again.
Although history has a funny habit of repeating itself, like, doesn't it? But
Absolutely.
That's a serious list of injuries. You must have been, obviously rugby is a very, very physical sport, and you've been taking some massive hits there.
Yeah, like rugby has developed. It's got more powerful, more stronger. Athletes are getting leaner in rugby, and they reckon it's one of the biggest causes of their injuries. Their people are too powerful nowadays. There's probably a wee bit of the contact that's coming out of it. It's getting more tactical. It's getting certainly much faster. So hopefully, if it gets safer, that's a good thing. Rugby injuries, we don't want to see them because they're normally pretty severe. So plenty of broken toes and fingers over the years, and twisted knees and all sorts. So you think at that stage you're 19 stone and you're thinking your sport's over, and where do you go from here? And I remember coming towards the end of that journey and thinking, I don't want to be one of those guys sitting in the clubhouse with a pint of Guinness every Saturday and ridiculing the young lads coming through. I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what it was at that stage. And I suppose a sad farewell to rugby, and my brother said to me one day, he says, I think you've had Carl on the podcast here, and Carl says, do you fancy coming out? I'm doing a bit of a cycle thing with Keith Clark and Bob at the Decaman, and in 2012, and do you fancy coming out and seeing a bit of it? And And I suppose that was the start of an epic journey at that stage, Mickey. And I went out and I went out and seen a bit of the DACA and the DACA man, which is 10 Ironman in 10 days. And the day I was there, Keith Clark was on the bike leg doing his 112 miles as he did every day for 10 days. And he fell asleep on the bike, and I think he fell into the hedge or something. And I just thought, you know what, hey, this is inspirational stuff. I want a piece of it. And I suppose that was it. Hooked into what these men were trying to do.
There's something just about rugby players that are. I mean, rugby players are different. They're a different animal. I hope you don't mind me saying that. But there's a determination, and there's a hardiness, and there's a do not give up. You know, and you don't back out, and there's a courageousness, if that's the right word, within rugby players. You know, and there's I always remember watching the rugby whereby one of the Irish team was taken off and he was receiving stitches to his head just on the side of the sideline during one of the televised matches. Just no anaesthetic, just stitched him up, wrapped him up and way back on. And then you compare that to a soccer player who's rolling around the floor, and that's him out for about 3 years. But you must have carried some of that die-hard kind of gung-ho bravery forward with you. Is that fair enough to say, or is that maybe a wee bit inaccurate? Or
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Certainly, I reflect back on times in rugby when you were strapped up and put back on the pitch, and you're doing a scrum on your own 5 meter line 2 minutes before the end of a game, and you're trying to save the match. And the importance of being a vital team player, but you're hanging together, and you don't want to let your other 14 clubmates down. Yet you can't feel your right arm. You've maybe rolled your ankle. It's bandaged up. Your shoulders are bandaged up. Your blood pouring from your face. It sounds heroic, but it happens a lot in rugby. And the camaraderie you have in rugby, it means that you don't want to let your teammates down. Something I would see in our club at the moment, we've tried to develop that over the years, is you don't want to let your clubmates down. It's a team. And that spirit, it's not about you. You're not courageous yourself. You want to try and, be a team player and put it all out there for your other 14 clubmates. That's really what it comes down to, Mickey.
Moving away from the rugby and from the injuries and the blood and the gore and all the rest, you decided then that it might be a good idea to take up a wee bit of obstacle course racing, which of course involves blood, bruises, batters, all sorts of injuries and crazy obstacles. And I have to say, something that really, really appealed to me. I still love doing the odd wee sort of mud run here and there, But I would remember you and Keith Clark and Patter McCall and a couple of them other guys running about in the BST days. So were you involved with that then, along with Keith and them guys in setting all that up?
That's right, yeah. So I was back just after the DACA and the DACA man, so you did 10 Ironman 10 days. And shortly after that, Keith and Carl and a couple others, we got together and we decided we're just going to leisurely do some running around Park and Oar Forest. Before we knew it, we were crawling under fallen trees and swinging from branches and run through mud pits and stuff. And it just took a life of its own, to be honest, Mickey. And mud runs were booming at that stage. There was Mud Madness in Portadown, and Hell and Back was just being launched. And so from blood, sweat and tears on the rugby pitch, it was blood, sweat and tears in the forest and off road. And it just took a life of its own. And I think at one stage we maybe had 100 members, and that was all probably within the first year. And I think as much as there's so much success, I think we couldn't find the next step for it. I think that was the problem. But we developed into loads of charity work, and we put on some big events on at Park and Oar Forest, Pomeroy Forest. I think Pomeroy, we had nearly 1,000 people through it. Absolutely amazing. We lifted like £25,000 for soft charity. It was amazing the amounts of money that we lifted. But we had a ball of a time, absolutely whale of a time. And it was a really, really good introduction for people into running who had never maybe done any running. It took the sort of monotonous of running roads, and at one stage we had a hashtag "We don't do roads," and it was just fun. It was off road through mud. You were jumping into rivers and streams, and I think if my kids were doing it, I'd be cross. They'd be thinking, "Oh my goodness, that's not safe now." But we were doing it. We were just big naughty kids. That's what we were, having a ball.
The very first run I did, whenever I was turning 40, I took this notion that I need to try and get myself into some sort of shape, and I had joined a gym, and there was a number of people in the gym that were going to take part in this event called Run to the Hills. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about and where I'm going with this,
Yeah.
but I had never heard of this before, and I had never heard of the term mud run. I didn't know anything about it. The guys just told me, just come along, it'll be great crack. That was the first run that I ever did, was Run to the Hills in Pomeroy. And I was as high as a kite for about a week after, and I was absolutely buzzing. I had never experienced anything quite like it in terms of just the wackiness of it, the adventurousness of it. It's obviously very challenging, but running through rivers, getting covered in muck, clambering over stuff, it just ticked so many boxes for me. And then subsequently to that, I think I was at 4 or 5 of the BST runs in Dungannon as well, which were absolutely amazing up in Park Nor. I really, really loved all those events. Mighty, mighty stuff. Went on to do Spartan as well. So I'm assuming you went on then to do some of those other bigger international events with regards to the OCR, or did you just sort of play it local?
Yeah, yeah. So we did some of the hell and back races down in Dublin, and they gave us a wee bit of an appetite. And we next thing somebody had mentioned this tough guy race in Wolverhampton, but it was like the second week in January, and we've seen a few YouTube clips of people breaking through ice and being dunked under timber and iced water and stuff. We thought this looks pretty cool. So I think there was a team of 6 or 7 of us went over and did it that year, and absolutely horrendous. It's they have a death waiver that you have to sign in advance, and the obstacles were falling apart, and some of them were 30, 40 foot in the air, and you're climbing across cargo nets, and these things were shaking, and it was just absolute brutal. You're breaking through ice to get up through this water, and then you had to dunk underneath it, and the brain freeze was just brutal. And I remember at that stage we went out to Escralock. It's funny how these things come back full circle. We were out to Escralock, where obviously our tri club train now, and we were jumping off the pier in our shorts and t-shirts and bare bellies, and like New Year's Day, swimming through iced water to try and sort of climatize for this Tough Guy event. So if you haven't seen Tough Guy before, check it out. It's absolutely brutal. And so we went over and did that, and that was probably my limits as far as it went in terms of obstacle racing. I didn't really get into the real technical stuff that's happening nowadays, where the World Championships and stuff like that. With you have the band, and it's not really about running and stuff. And there's certainly no mud. A lot of it's very technical. So I never got as far as that. The Tough Guy was the big challenge for me, and hell and back, I suppose.
Two mighty events. I've never done Tough Guy, but it's probably the only one that I haven't done really. But I'll need to maybe get a wee look at maybe hitting that someday. Let's get into triathlon. So that was around sort of 2012, whenever you were hanging out with Keith and them guys doing the DECA, and then that sort of inspired you to do a bit of running. You get into your OCR and your Park and Or and the BST days. Talk me through how that then transpired that you would give this triathlon carry on a go.
Yeah, so there was a sprint triathlon out at Escralock. We used to do a really good event on a Friday evening in September, and we'd been running around Park and Or most of the summer in terms of mud and stuff like that. And Keith Clark says to me, he says, "You should do the wee sprint triathlon." I says, "I can't swim." He says, "Don't worry about that." He says, "I don't have a bike." He says, "Don't worry about that." So I think Gumtree was the thing in them days. So I was looking around Gumtree for a second-hand bike, and I finally got one about 3 weeks out from the sprint triathlon. I drove down to the Decathlon one day and bought this wetsuit, which took me ages to get into, and tried it on in Decathlon. I came back up the road and I says, Keith, I got a wetsuit, wait, I'll show you, but it was really hard to get into. So I put it on and he goes, what the hell is that? He says, it's about 4 sizes too big. And I says, but it took me about half an hour to get into it. He says, well, you don't really have time to get it changed now. You're only a couple of weeks out from the race. I says, I know, but I still haven't swam any more than 200 metres. And a sprint is 750 metres. So I just sort of jump off the pier and hope for the best type of thing. And I think I swam 400 metres was the most I could swim in before the sprint triathlon. Very, very badly in this oversized, like 5mm surf suit, which was 2 or 3 sizes too big for me. On a bike that the saddle was sitting in the top tube, and no one at that stage was fit to tell me you need to lift your saddle up a wee bit. My knees were going out and I had trainers on, and I was at this stage I'd probably lost a couple of stone, but I was probably still in around 17 and a half, 18 stone, somewhere in that region. So I was a big guy and in an oversized suit and a bike that didn't fit me, but I did it. And I absolutely loved it, Mickey. Done a sprint triathlon, and I have a photograph of me running down the finish line, and it's as proud as any Ironman finish line photo as I ever have, because to me that was the start of the journey. And when I show that to some of my athletes and stuff and friends and people, they don't remember that, Mark, at times. And I think, I keep saying, like, we've all had to start somewhere, that was the start of my journey, and it's been amazing since.
That's the wee bit that I was interested in getting to. It's the idea that a lot of people that would know you, including myself, would know you as the present, you in the present, or you over the last number of recent years where you've been a runner or you've been a triathlete. And some of us that wouldn't have known you back then from the rugby days and that weight, it's refreshing to be able to understand that at one point you were unable to swim the distance in a sprint triathlon, that you didn't know that you needed to lift the bike seat up, that you didn't know about clip-in pedals, all these wee things that we all now take for granted. But it's just nice, and it's refreshing and honest. Just to put that out there, that's where we all start. We all start from this place of naivety and excitement and wonder about what will happen. And we'll get to what happens subsequently, but it's just always nice to reflect on that wee bit, I think.
Yeah, and sometimes I have to pinch myself, but you'd be surprised if I told you that, you don't really get out of a fat mindset. And I can say that because I see myself as being, and in rugby we call them, the big guys, the fatties. It's a mindset that it sticks with you. It's very hard to shift. I still see myself as the big lad, and yet I'm 80 kgs, 13 stone or whatever. But I look at photographs of rugby days and I don't see a thin mark now. It doesn't really shift away from you. So it's a mindset thing because I've always been big. But maybe sometimes I look at photographs and I don't even realize that, oh, that's me. So it's strange, but yeah, I think it's really important that you do look back in your journey. I certainly have to at times, and reflect on where you've come from, because we're always trying to strive to be this next level or keep progressing forward. But if you forget your journey, you never get happy. You never be happy about, because we're so competitive. We're all athletes. We're all trying to progress and be better as athletes. We need to look back on the journey and see where we've come from. And some people that's more difficult than others to do.
It's very important, just every so often, just to give yourself that wee reminder and just be grateful about where you are today. It's just that wee sense of gratitude for whatever reason that you've been blessed enough to be able to get to where you are now. And it's all down to commitment, it's down to discipline, it's down to that sort of self-belief. And it's okay sometimes just to give ourselves a wee bit of a pat in the back and say, well done, happy days, let's move on now.
Yeah. I remember.
So I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Just to add, I remember when I was obviously having the problems with my neck and my arm and the nerve damage, and I remember going to Musgrave Hospital and I seen a neck specialist. in around this time, and I says to him, at this stage they were talking about surgery, discs and stuff, and then that guy says, you should maybe think about maybe doing a wee bit of light swimming. And I says to him, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I said, I'm doing a bit of cycling too. And he says, oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And then I says to him, I'm actually going to do a triathlon. And he says, no, don't do that. That's madness. Don't be doing that. He says, I have a few friends that do that. Don't do a triathlon. But I did the triathlon. I lost another couple of stone at that stage, leading out towards the end of the year. My wife, for whatever reason, decided to enter me in the Dublin Marathon that same year. So I had to learn very quickly to run 26.2 miles, which was only like 2 months after this first sprint triathlon. So you can imagine what a neck specialist was saying to me when we were looking at neck surgery and all at this stage. He was telling me to wise up and stop it. And I think, Mickey, when somebody says not to do something, there's that naughty child in you that just wants to do it and prove them wrong, you know?
Yeah. You kind of didn't hang around either. Do you know what I mean? From once you got that first sprint out of the way, that was 2013. It wasn't long following that you upscaled to a full distance triathlon. What was your first full distance triathlon?
Eskra. So Eskra, man, in 2014. It was just a few weeks after I did my first sprint triathlon, and funny, I'm glad you didn't ask me what time it was, because I don't even remember how long it took me. I think they had packed everything up bar the finish line for me. So it was slow and steady, but I done it in it. And a couple of weeks after the sprint triathlon, I think I was still training for the marathon that my wife had signed me up for, because she mustn't have liked me at that stage. We went around to Keith Clark's house one night, and he I don't know, he sort of lured us there in false pretenses, and he says, guys, come on around, we'll watch some movies. And you're thinking, goodness, what's coming here? And next thing, we're around at Keith Clark's house, and he's watching all these Ironman things. And at this stage, I had no idea what an Ironman was. I just found out what a sprint triathlon was by being through in at the deep end. And we're watching these videos of Hawaii and Kona and stuff, and flicking up videos of Lanzarote and Roth and all these iconic Ironman events. And we were just thinking, wow, these guys are nutcases. Why on earth would you do that? I'm training for a marathon here, and this is ridiculous. Why would you cycle before it and do all that distance? No. And then before we left, Keith says, right, who's signing up for an Ironman? And we're like, what? No way. Right, next June, Esker Loch. You have 6 months, 9 months to train for it. And yeah, we just 4 or 5 of us just says, right, okay, let's see what we can do. And whew, we spent a winter of torture and all the rest, and I was barely fit to swim 400 meters at that stage. I had to swim nearly 10 times that. Yeah, don't really know what the feelings were at that stage, Mickey. It was probably naivety, maybe a wee bit of I think, and this adrenaline fueled in a group of lads, and you think you can do anything at that stage,
But there must have been something just. I think it's just the wackiness of it. It certainly appeals to me that it's a bonkers thing. It's an absolutely bonkers thing that we do. And I remember thinking about anybody that can do an Ironman or a half Ironman, even for that matter, is something special, and I could never envisage me being able to do it. And similarly with the mud runs, but it must be just that idea that this is nuts, and therefore let's do it. Just let's get on with it.
Yeah, well, I think the Eskimo man appealed to me quicker than an Ironman, because the thought of travelling abroad and the money and all that with time cut-offs and stuff sort of was a wee bit daunting at that stage, and the comfort of doing something close to home. I thought to myself, look, I'll raise some money for charity, do this worthwhile, this will be one-off. And I think, like a lot of people, this is a one-off. And so, look, we did it for charity, Charis Cancer Foundation, and I think that was one of the motivators, really. A few family members over the years had been hit with cancer, and it just felt like that was a good thing to do, and that inspired me. And doing it with a group of mates was really, really, really powerful too. My brother Carl and Paul Henry, the two of them, and then a few other ones like Gary Kidney had done a few Ironman at that stage, and Keith and Bob were organising it. These legend DECA men, to know that you're being the safety of their hands. There was like a sort of put your arm around each other. There's that camaraderie that we had back in the rugby days. You felt in a safe environment, yet very vulnerable, very vulnerable.
I think it might have been whenever I was speaking with Carl or possibly Keith, but I remember just at that time, and it's sprung into my mind again, just how class that is, the idea just about a bunch of lads that have got a similar thing going on, and they just all decide, right, let's do this. There's a lovely kind of intimacy in it, and it's like a private VIP, you're part of just a wee small clique. And that nearly sounds more appealing to me than going with the razzmatazz and the fireworks and the everything else that we associate with a big commercial Ironman event or a challenge event or anything else for that matter. So there's something quite unique about that 2014 Esquerman event that's I don't think is ever going to be replicated again.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. And another wee thing that I forgot to mention at that stage was our good friend Keith Murphy was diagnosed with a severe illness at that stage, and we were another charity that we raised money for was the Leukemia Foundation, I think it's called, and that was for Keith. And there was all sorts of relay events and all happened at that Esquerman, which was fantastic and a great way to do an Ironman. A good introduction to an Ironman is possibly to do a relay, where you do one of the legs. And loads of people are raising money for different cancer charities, one of them being that leukemia trust or foundation that Keith was involved with. So there was a wee extra motivation, Mickey, that, it wasn't just sport, the camaraderie of the lads, this introduction of us all meeting at the same time in our life. And to be fair, like I was fairly freshly made up with Paul Henry at that stage, and he was new to the Tyrone area, and we'd had a good bond, and we have good mates ever since. And my brother Carl, that he went down the football journey of his life, and I went down the rugby journey. We never really got many sports together, even though we're both very sporty, and that was the start of a new bond there too. So there was so much going on, it was just fell in love with it after that first sprint triathlon, but a tough journey ahead.
You weren't finished after that event in Askra, because you went on to do quite a few Ironman events then thereafter. How many Ironman events have you completed full distance?
Full distance, Maggie, 14 so far. 14 so far. So far.
That's a wee dot. So you're not done yet. So 14. So where have you gone? So after Askra, you went. Where did you go? Did you go abroad then? Did you?
Went abroad. We were actually, and this is crazy. We were having a Christmas do a few weeks after Esquerman, and we had it in June or July. Sorry. Instead of having a summer barbecue, we decided to have a Christmas do, and we had Christmas jumpers, and we've got Christmas decorations put up. We'd had it in the Dogs at Drumbo in Lisburn, and we ended up having a barbecue that winter at Christmas time, and we had a Christmas do in summertime, just because that's what BST did, and we were just different. And we were sitting in Drumbo, and somebody shouts, "We need to book something, guys. What are we going to do? We need to book a race." So you're thinking maybe, oh, we'll get a 10K or something, and we'll drop down the road 5 miles somewhere and do a wee 10K race. But I think it was probably Keith Clark says, "Well, why don't we go to Lanzarote Ironman?" He'd done it a few years beforehand. And next thing, the phones were out. We're watching YouTube, and I think 4 of us at that stage then booked Ironman Lanzarote. just a few weeks after Eskerman, and that was for the following May 2015.
That Keith Clark boy's got some answers, hasn't he? Like,
yeah, it just shows you the legacy that came out of the Decaman, and Keith's camaraderie, the crack and the banter that he can pull people together is brilliant.
Good stuff. And how did you find Lanzarote? Because of course it's a very, very different animal to the event that he's had in Askra. And I'm not taking away from the event in Askra because it's no mean feat to cover those distances in any way, shape or form over any terrain. But I suppose Lanzarote is notorious for its elevation and the wind and the heat and stuff. Did you find that there was a big, big difference in your experience there compared to Askra?
Yeah. Naivety is a great thing, Mickey. Probably didn't do much research at all. Eskra was a lake swim, lovely, beautiful lake, fairly flat bike, totally flat run. And you're thinking, sure, you're going to Lanzarote for a bit of a holiday and you have to do an Ironman. Forgetting that it was the sea, forgetting nobody knew anything about elevation. We didn't really look at meters. We didn't look at inclines, declines. We never looked at any of that, course recce or anything like that. So yeah, we sort of trained blind. Paul and I, we went up to Rossnowla one day just because we thought we need to get in the sea a few weeks beforehand, and we went up to Rossnowla and the waves were there, and we went into the water. It was absolutely Baltic, and we were swimming away, and we weren't going anywhere. And we're thinking, this is a total waste of time. We're getting out of here. The water was so choppy. And you know what? That was one of the best things we had done. That totally prepared us for, one, being the cold water, and two, being choppy water. Thankfully, Lanzarote Sea was never, ever that choppy. We bit of swell here and there. But when you've been in really choppy weather, then you're ready for anything. That was about the only real simulation we did, and that's the only real proper practice we did. Like, it was, goodness, I would scold, I would shout at my athletes now, Mickey, if they done that sort of prep for a race, and I suppose that's where you make all these huge mistakes. Like, even to go back to Eskerman, the mistakes I made, Mickey, was ridiculous. Around nutrition, and like, can I tell you, I took a pasta mugshot in transition 1. I took 6 Snickers on the bike, and I took past the mugshot in transition 2 in Eskerman, and I spent about an hour and a half in a Portaloo on the run.
There's not a notion then, like?
Not a notion. I thought you had to see the box of food. I have a photograph of the box of food that I took to Eskerman. It was horrendous. It would have fed a family for a week. So you learn very, very quickly by your mistakes, and by the length of time you spend in a Portaloo at an Ironman, you soon learn your nutritional strategy,
It's definitely stood you in good stead in terms of your coaching. We'll come to your coaching later on, but you definitely know what not to do because you've probably done all the things that you shouldn't do. Would it be fair to say that by the time you got to Lanzarote, you had at least got yourself a decent bike? Your saddle had been lifted up a wee bit, and you maybe had a wetsuit that fitted you, where you're beginning to start looking like a triathlete then at this stage, even though you hadn't maybe fully prepped.
I don't know if I looked like a triathlete because I was still fairly big at this stage too. Although to me, to be honest, Lanzarote was very humbling. And I remember after Lanzarote the first year, my mum went out and she says, "I can't believe the different shapes and sizes there is of people at an Ironman. And she says, some big guys are going faster than those guys with the 6-packs, And it always sticks with me, when people are very conscious or body conscious, that it's not really relevant, certainly all sorts of shapes and stuff. You could see someone, a bigger person finishing in 10 hours, and you could see this person absolutely ripped and their 6-packs bulging out through their tray suit and they're coming in 17 hours. It comes down to the training really at the end of the day. But that memory from my mum always stuck with me. That journey into Lanzarote was really important, and I knew one of the things I had to do was get some proper swimming done. So Joanne Miller, she gave me some 1-to-1 coaching for swimming, and that was my first sort of dabble into getting proper training for triathlon, and that was invaluable. I don't think you can go and risk jumping into a sea swim without some points and tips, and that was really important. She ended up doing the Ironman a couple of years later with me. She did Lanzarote as well. But that was really important. Got a proper bike, got a proper wetsuit, a Blue 70 wetsuit, so it wasn't a surf suit from Decathlon. It was a proper swimsuit, a proper bike. My Ridley was my first road bike, a real proper road bike, and some proper runners and a proper tri-suit and all, and probably did look the part.
Good stuff.
You know,
you completed Lanzarote then in 2015, and then you strike me as a sort of, you're a, for want of a better term, you're a shit or bust sort of a guy. You're all in. You're either in or you're out, and you're full on in. I think with triathlon, like you escalated from sprint to Ironman, and then you went from your Esquerman to Lanzarote. So within the space of like 2 years, you're really, really flying, going for the big numbers and the big races. And that led then to Tri Limits being formed. Was that something that sort of just came out of your experiences of Escra and Lanzarote, that you wanted to share this with others, or what was the sort of thinking behind the formation of the club then?
Interesting. There's so much the conversations going on at this stage. There was a squad of us who were in Blood, Sweat and Tears, BST, and we were moving away from mud running, and didn't want to be having to wash the car out every Sunday morning after running around forests and stuff. Gradually moving into triathlon, and we were at one stage looking to maybe move Blood, Sweat and Tears to be a mud run and a triathlon club. And in fact, we even got some kit designed up, but it wasn't working. It just didn't fit right. And at that stage, Keith and Bob were event organisers and they had the name Tri Limits. They were organising races and doing loads of charity work and stuff. So Tri Limits was there. It just wasn't a club affiliated to Triathlon Ireland. So in around that time, a group of us got together, and Keith and Bob were sort of stepping back from the event organising and so on, and they weren't really interested in the whole club environment at that stage. And so we decided to look. I think there were 6 or 7 of us got together in the Gables, and we said, look, we're going to form a club here and see if we can spread our wings a wee bit and see what happens. So we've set up Tri Limits. I wrote up a constitution. We got affiliated to Triathlon Ireland. That all happened in around 2016. I think it started 2016. And it just has grew. I think that first year, officially as a club, like the first year I organised the race, we had a sprint and a try on the Friday night, and we had an Olympic and a 70.3 on the Saturday. You know, it was just crazy. I think we were trying to be everything for everybody, you know, but it's a lot of work. A new club, new members, and I think by the end of the first year, with 35 or 40 members in Tri Limits, from 6 or 7 meeting around a table a few months beforehand.
The club has obviously grown from and moved strength to strength, year in, year out. This year, of course, we had the 70.3. I participated in that too, and had a great chat with both yourself and Carl and Keith Clark and a few other boys up there too. Shane McGill always likes to get mentioned in these podcasts, you know yourself. But the other thing then that you set up quite quickly then after that was the coaching end of things. So did you sort of start training, doing the coaching work alongside setting up the Tri Limits club then? Did that just naturally, did you see yourself as kind of, okay, so I'm involved in setting the club up, I therefore need to know how to do these things, and I want to just, was it just your natural instinct to want to know and get more knowledge, or was it about being sort of on hand, on call as part of the club and part of the committee, that you were in a position then to be able to offer sound advice?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all those things, Mickey. And Back when BST days, I was athletics coach. So I was coaching the run training and doing speed work and track sessions and stuff with BST, and did a bit of coaching in rugby as well. So coaching wasn't new to me. I think those early days of triathlon, the mistakes that I made going into my first sprint, and first Ironman, and then second Ironman, you're thinking, hey, I need to jot down, and I started making some ideas and suggestions, and I've wrote like wee blogs around every Ironman I have done, but I've never done anything with it. It's all sitting in a Word document, and I kept thinking about all these mistakes that I'm making. Surely other people don't need to make those mistakes. I think that's generally why a lot of coaches try to sort of spread their word a wee bit. And I was helping people, and I've been helping people for years with running, more so at that stage. And I had done, even before the club was formed, and I had done my tri leader badge, and I'd done my level 1. And so I think in 2017 then TriSmart was set up, but I think for a couple of years I was just coaching a few people. There wasn't really a business as such. It was just, look, I just set up a brand and I started out. I think like any coach, you need to put yourself out there. You need to offer out. And I coached a few people, for a couple of years, and it was all free and stuff like that. And I just wanted to share my knowledge and my experiences and my mistakes, and try and speed those things up for others so they didn't have to make those same mistakes. And it's grew massively. It's a huge part of my life now, and such a transformation over the years. And it's an endless journey. I think when I was going through my weight loss, Mickey, I've lost about 7 stone. I did it all pretty much myself, and I've studied several different I'm a sports nutritionist as well. And I couldn't find the right advice that would help me lose the weight. I think, so I just kept researching and researching. I couldn't find anybody to help me, and I just kept researching it myself till I got a good understanding. And it's so important, nutrition, especially for long distance triathlon. That's become a big part of it as well. So that started out slowly in 2017. Can even say, and I had my first t-shirt I bought, and I was talking to my wife the other day about this. I says, I didn't even have the confidence to put the word coach on the t-shirt. It said TriSmart. And it took me a long time to be able to call myself a coach. And even though I'd been coaching athletics and running for years, to have that confidence to stand in front of a crowd and call yourself a coach, it's tough, So, but it started out slowly, and it's grown, and it's done really well.
It's a funny old thing, isn't it, our mindset? Because it's just interesting to hear, you, and very honestly and openly saying there, that you had some issues with confidence and just that kind of self-belief. And yet people that would see you and know you and aspire to be like you would see and rate you in completely the opposite way. And it's just a weird kind of juxtaposition, isn't it? Like I would never have thought of you as someone that maybe lacked in confidence, because I see a very different version of you than you see whenever you sort of view yourself. It's a funny old game, this mindset.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, and yeah, I've always felt I've lacked confidence, and I think growing up, when you're a big fella and you go through school and stuff, and you're the bigger ones, I seen a poster the other day that showed how you pick a football team. I was the big guy that done goals because I was the biggest and slowest, and I always thought I was a decent footballer, but I was always last picked and putting goals, So rugby suited me when I was forced into it at 13 or 14 years of age. So yeah, look, confidence comes and goes, and it's not always what you see is not always like. I'm always sometimes like the wee swan that kicks under the water, but you've got to try to hold your head up above it at times, and that's I suppose that's life. It comes and goes, and confidence goes, and some days it's good and some days it's not.
No, that's it. It's a fluid thing, and it comes and goes. There's highs and lows, and it's all part of the journey of life and experience and everything else. But hey, in terms of being a confident athlete, You didn't let up, because I'm just looking through the timeline here. In 2018, you decided that Lanzarote Ironman wasn't enough. You decided that you would tag on the Wales Ironman onto the back of that, and then the following year you did Lanzarote again for what was the fifth time in a row. Is that right? And then you did Challenge Roth that year as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like you went out and picked what some people might say the easier courses. You really chose quite challenging courses. So in terms of being able to test your mettle and your strength, and your confidence, well, you put a few. You certainly answered that, with all those events, massive, massive events.
Yeah. Probably a couple of things there, Mickey. If you sometimes you pick the harder courses, then there's less focus on time, and that was my thinking at that stage. I was thinking, there doesn't be much talk about times and stuff, but certainly when you're picking Lanzarote, it's about the completion of it, and that to me was the goal, finishing the race. And okay, I did it 5 years in a row, and I had 4 years of progression, and 1 year then a bit of a dodgy stomach that set me back a wee bit, but. It was rarely ever about times. It was just about completion, and that's why the likes of Wales is through in there too, because it was the challenge. It was like, bring it on. I want tough courses. I don't want it to be about times, and that is, I suppose, maybe a lack of confidence too to put yourself out there for a time. But I'm not really a time person, even though like I've done all right with times over the years, but. It was really about the tough mental challenge. Lanzarote and Wales in the 1 year is tough, and if you're going to put it out there, they are great. But Lanzarote, after the first year, somebody said to me, "Look, you get a special medal if you do it 5 years in a row," and it was probably Shane McGill who planted that seed, because he was heading for his fifth one, I think, in around that time, and I thought, oh, this is great. So every year. For 5 years, I had a book for the next year before I left Lanzarote for the I was in the airport
Unreal.
next year. And Shane McGill was he's a good lad, but he's a real inspiration, and he keeps banging out these Ironmen and inspiring people to do them, and like he doesn't pick easy ones, like he keeps going back to Lanzarote, and that was he's an inspiration at that stage, and
Yeah,
inspiring a lot of
totally.
people.
Absolutely. 2020 saw you do the backyard Ironman. That was in your 40th birthday weekend. Tell us a wee bit about that. Was that
Uh,
another sort of home brew, was it?
Yeah, homebrew. Yeah, so we'd been out training camp in Lanzarote in March. I run a wee training camp every year, and we just got caught out with COVID at the end of it. So we'll not go into the lockdown details, but 2020 we're locked down. We're at home, and everybody's running on treadmills and turbo training because you can't go anywhere or do anything, and a wee bit frustrated. I was signed up again for Challenge Roth, and it was meant to be in I think the end of June that year. So about 6 or 8 weeks out, realizing it's not going to happen. Realizing that I'm not going to get a 40th birthday party either. I thought, look, I'm going to do something useful. I've been training flat out now for 4 or 5 months, and I'm in good shape. So I decided, just with the COVID thing, I thought it'd be good to raise some awareness for a mental health charity, Neve Louise, and I contacted them and says, look, I'm going to do a wee challenge in my backyard, and do you mind if I raise some money for you? So I had a couple of weeks to get prepared for this. I ordered a swimming pool online from Amazon, a 12-foot swimming pool, and I built it in the backyard, and I bought a tether to tie my feet, and so I tied my feet up and swam in this pool, and I'd done this practicing for a few days in a row, thinking this is not bad during the day. It's great. It was warm summer. That first COVID year was brilliant. But I hadn't really thought that at 7 o'clock in the morning when I start this Ironman, it might be cold. So train in it, and come race day, I got out and I touched the water, and I was like, it's really cold here. Put a thermostat in it. It was like 8 degrees. I was like, flip. So we put the immersion on. I went and got changed and got my wetsuit and COVID lockdown. So there was Carl and my family and my mum and my dad and Stanley, and they were there. And with the garden hose plugged into the back of the wetsuit with the immersion running and the hot top running down my wetsuit. It was about 9 degrees. And tied up my feet and swam in the pool, this 12-foot pool for about an hour and 10 minutes, which was my typical Ironman time. We had Swift loaded up with a big gazebo outside. I had brought the watt bike outside and onto the gazebo, and I had a treadmill there as well, and connected it up to Zoom, and loads and loads of people were on, and I was doing a full rundown of my nutrition, talking through the watts and everything I was trying to hold for a 5 hour bike, which is just trying to replicate Roth, what it was going to be like, and held the power that I planned to hold, and really scary actually, because very few people have done an Ironman live on Facebook, and there was no hiding places. And when I was going through deep sparts as you do in an Ironman, you were generally talking about it to dozens of people watching, and they were donating, and more money was coming in for the charity, and then it was quick transition, and then you're live on Facebook for transitions as well. It was really scary, actually, when I think back to it. I don't know if I could do it now.
There's nowhere to hide, is there?
Nowhere to hide, Mickey, yeah. And then on the treadmill for just over 3 hours. It's about 3 hours 20 or 3 hours 30, something like that. All your nutritional strategy, you're chugging in gels, you're having horrible times, and there's 4 people there to celebrate, but there's dozens or whatever on Facebook Live. So finished it, and amazingly lifted a couple, 2,500 pounds, just like that, for Neve Louise, which was fantastic.
That is absolutely nuts. Pure bonkers.
I think it is, and I can't remember, it was in around 10 hours in a row for the time, but phenomenal, lovely way to raise money, I have to say. Really, really scary to put yourself out there live on Facebook during an Ironman. And I'd seen somebody done it in America, and that just inspired me to do it. And it's a good way to say to my wife, I never had a 40th birthday party, so I'm still technically 39. That's my claim in it.
Peter Pan, eat your heart out. But the other thing, then, just to reflect on that for a wee second, the mental strength that it takes to do any one of those things is phenomenal. But to do it all, basically you're going nowhere fast. You're swimming on the one spot, cycling in the one spot, and running in the one spot, for hours and hours and hours and hours. Like, it's, the commitment and the mind to be able to hold that and to do that is something special, I think. I don't know that I could do that. I mean, the thought of that would just, I couldn't even entertain it, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't not be able to do that at all. So that's unreal. That's something special, that.
I think sometimes when you go to an Ironman, the commentators are very good at trying to get you motivated at the start, and I often hear Paul Kay, who calls you down the finish line, and he always says to you, when you get the tough going, always remember your why and why you do these things. Generally about mile 18 in an Ironman run is the dark spot. And I suppose when you're raising money for charity and you're doing a challenge, and as probably some of this has come from Keith Clark, because a lot of his big challenges are done huge amount of awareness and money raising for charity. And that's a huge responsibility. And when you put a charity on it, or if you're raising awareness or collecting money for a good cause, your why is very simple. You have to finish it. There's no, to me, that day was about Neve Louise Foundation, and when I got into a real dark spot, it wasn't why for me. It was, look, I need to finish this. I need to raise money, or I'll feel like I'm doing something wrong giving this money over to charity. If I haven't finished the challenge, I'll be a failure. So it's that why. It goes back to my very first Ironman. When you're doing it for charity and there's a purpose and there's a good cause there, then the why is very easy, I think. Doesn't happen all the time, but yeah.
There's a wider reason and strength to be taken then from those external factors.
Yeah,
So in 21 you did Ironman Portugal, and then in 2022 you ended up in Utah. Is that right?
that's right. That's right.
Talk us through Utah, because that wasn't just a wee park run either, was it?
No, so when I did Ironman Wales in 2018, I think it was 20th in my age group, and top 10 would have qualified for Kona at that stage. But it was about 20 minutes out from qualifying, and it gave me a bit of belief at that stage, Mickey, that, do you know what? I could maybe qualify for the World Championships. Maybe. If there's another wee kick or another wee gear, I could possibly qualify. So during COVID, another year and a half after the backyard Ironman, I sort of had highlighted Portugal as a possible place to qualify for the World Champs. Horrible time to travel. We went to Barcelona. My wife did the 70.3 in Barcelona. It was masks. It was testing before you travel and all. It was really, really horrible time. But went to Portugal and did Ironman Portugal. Absolutely amazing race. And hope to go back next year to it. But there was no qualification because it was all COVID. You were ushered out over the finish line, handed a medal and a goodie bag and with food in it, and told to keep moving and put your mask on. So it was very clinical. But like I got an email in a few days to say you've qualified for the World Championships. Wee bit of an anticlimax, but do you know what? I got the qualification I've always wanted. The problem was at that stage they hadn't guaranteed Kona was going to happen because Hawaii was total lockdown. So I qualified for World Championships. I didn't know when it was going to be or what it was going to be. And then a few weeks later, I got word that it was the World Championships for 1 year only was moving to St. George, Utah. So obviously I've accepted it on both arms, and started the train for it. It was going to be May, and I'd done Portugal in October, so there was no real downtime. A few weeks after Portugal, and then started training flat out for the Ironman Worlds in St. George. Brutal location to get to. Absolutely, like 2 flights, 29 hours travel. I think it took us. Had a wee overnighter in Las Vegas when we were going there, and a 2 hour bus journey up to St. George, but an absolute beautiful place. Swimming in a lake, probably a wee bit like Eskra, just a bit colder. The bike leg was a bit like Lanzarote. It was absolutely brutal. It was about 8,500 feet of climbing. And the run was worse than Wales. The hilliness of it was absolutely savage running. And it was 38 degrees. And about 90% humidity. So it was a total unknown. And I tried all sorts. Now, this was my first attempt as an athlete, doing heat prep. So I was turning up the heat in the spare room. I was training with hoodies on, scarves on, windows closed, no fans, on the treadmill in tracksuit bottoms, trying to run at Ironman pace, turning up the heat. All sorts, hot baths, hot yoga, all sorts of stuff just to try and get a bit of heat climatizing. And it went well, actually. It went well.
As you were describing that, my cringe levels were increasing to ridiculous levels, but I was also thinking, be careful what you wish for. Like, Christ of Almighty, that's a savage piece of stuff. I bet you everybody else is quite happy now that St. George, Utah was a one-off and that we're back in the comfort of Kona, albeit that that's quite a hostile environment as well.
Yeah. Look, to be fair, Snow Canyon Mountain is one of the climbs in St. George Ironman, and it's absolutely beautiful. You're looking at red rocks. You know that I seen a sign that said Dixie Mountain, a Snow Canyon, and you're going up between red cliffs. It's just beautiful, like something you don't see anywhere else. And it was just the top of the climb was 5,000 feet of elevation, so you could hardly breathe at the top of this. And obviously, I'd done no high altitude training, other than Pomeroy where I live, but it's only a few hundred meters, compared to St. George. And Yeah, look, it's an absolute savage of a course. It makes, it's more tougher than Lanzarote in Wales, and the heat that adds to it as well.
Well,
But it's absolute beautiful experience, beautiful experience. It's a real
well,
privilege, I think, to race on the world stage. In an Ironman with any Ironman, to qualify and race in Ironman Worlds is just a real privilege. Real something that will stay with me forever. Like.
nobody can take that away from me. Whenever when you've put that work in, and that's really the guts of what is that 8 years of training, doing full distance runs every year, two runs, two events per year for 2 or 3 years. You had put the miles in, and you had committed, and it paid off. So fair play.
Yeah.
Um,
There was a bit of thought process actually around some of those double years. I was sort of testing out different theories, to be fair, and the one year did Lanzarote and then did Barcelona, so that was like a 3 month build back after one Ironman into another, and then I chose to do Roth the following year, which was like a 6 week after another Ironman. So I was practicing out different theories about when's the best time to do back to back Ironman. Was 6 weeks better or 3 months better, and anything that I would recommend or suggest to athletes, I always like to have tested out myself, and so then a first hand experience. I don't sure I've worked out the correct formula yet, so I'm not sure. I might have to practice a bit more at it, Mickey, before I give too many recommendations.
it sounds like a great excuse for booking another couple of events.
Definitely, definitely.
um, Quite recently, then, as recently as last year, you also qualified for the World 70.3 in Finland. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So after St George in 2022, I thought, look, I'm not going to race another full that year, and I thought to myself, I haven't really hit a 70.3 hard. So I sort of earmarked Cork 70.3 that summer. I thought I just lower down the volume of training and focus a wee bit more on the shorter stuff. And I felt with 7 or 8 years of Ironman, I'd lost a wee bit of my top end speed, run speed, because of so much volume. So I sort of thought, look, I maybe give Cork a good go and give it a good focus and a 3 or 4 month build at that stage into it. And if things go well, I could maybe get a qualification for the 70.3 Worlds. So I had a few curveballs in the lead up to Cork and stuff, and actually it was a trip of a lifetime. I actually had an amazing 3 weeks leading into it, but it wasn't the best prep for a 70.3. So my wife was training for her first Ironman that summer, and so she was doing Ironman Estonia. So we went for a week to Estonia for her Ironman, and then we came back and we camped out in Cork for 5 days while I did the 70.3, and then we went back to the airport straight away and went off on a family holiday to Salou, and so it was a trip of a summer, an absolute summer of a lifetime. And in the middle of it was Cork, and I got that final qualification slot for my age group, which meant that I went to 70.3 Worlds in Finland then last year, and that
And
was
you were
just
the Irish age group national series champion as well for 40-45 last year. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. So a few people have sort of said, "Oh, you're getting old and you're slowing down a wee bit," and I've sort of thought I need to go back to my roots. I need to go and do some sprint triathlons and stuff. So uh, you talk about stepping outside your comfort zone. I don't think I'd done a sprint triathlon in like 6 years pre-COVID. I think I'd done like 4 Ironmans since the last did a sprint. And I went to Crooked Lake at the start of last year thinking, what on earth am I doing? And I remember coming out of the water going, dilly-dallying out thinking this is Ironman pace, and then realising that everybody's sprinting past you and there's teenagers running past you. And I'd been coaching some of these teenagers, and I was thinking, you can't let these cubs beat you, and so I realised, oh flip, this is a sprint, not an Ironman, and so it was wake up moment, and yeah, I hit Crooked Lake really, really hard, and I absolutely loved it. I raced the bike, and I think I had the fastest bike split, and I run. I can't remember. It was like 18 and a half minutes off the bike or something like that. And I was thinking, wow, there's maybe a bit of life in this old dog yet. And a big cub, some of those cubs that I was coaching at the time, and I was thinking, wow, this is class, a good buzz, and good bit of adrenaline, and I thought this is special because there's a huge community in the national series that a lot of people don't realise, and the Ironman circuit's brilliant and gets you around the world, and you see a lot of places. But that taking it back to the grassroots last year was really, really, really inspiring for me, and the community that you get to meet week in, week out. You've only half a day, you travel an hour down the road, you do a sprint for an hour and a bit, and you can sit and have coffee and chat to all these triathlon junkies who are just talking about power and pace and nice fancy tack and stuff, and just enjoy the crack. And you don't need to spend thousands of pounds and fly to Lanzarote and places like that, and so I got a real buzz for it. So yeah, I done 4 or 5 sprints and a few Olympics last year, and before I know it, heading to, I think it was Pikeman at the end of the year, and thankfully the swim was cancelled, which suited me. It's my weakest discipline, and it was a duathlon, and yeah, I think I won my age group that day. So 4 or 5 age group wins over the year, and then overall at the end of the year I won my age group, which was just phenomenal. I didn't really expect that, but it really was humbling, as in the community that's there and the national series, the buzz, the crack, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Brilliant stuff. Absolutely class.
Throw in that then the Ironman Worlds in Finland, and it was like last year was probably a dream year. I actually raced the start of the year for in Ibiza at the Long Course World Championships as well, and wore the Irish tracksuit for the first time as well. So that was a real privilege as well. So last year was a really, really epic year.
Last year was an epic year, and then this year, through injury and illness, it hasn't been the year that you had hoped for. But I suppose it's given you an opportunity this year maybe to focus a wee bit more on the coaching. So let's have a wee chat just about the coaching, just in terms of how do you sort of ply your business as a coach? Are you a face-to-face man, or is there online coaching, or a bit of both, or what way do you work?
Yeah, a bit of both. I use generally an app called Training Peaks, where I upload sessions into the calendar, and people can download those onto their watch and stuff, and their Garmin devices, or they link straight into Swift and stuff like that. People then upload their data back in, and I analyze the data at my end and give them feedback and stuff like that. I coach face to face as well, so I do some swim analysis. I coach in the club. I'm head coach in Trail Limits as well, and I love to get eyes on my athletes, and so whether it's a meetup, we go for a run or we go for a cycle and stuff. But it's not always possible. I have a few athletes down south, across the water, international. It's just been growing really, really well, and I'm kind of scared to go all in full time at this, because it's a hobby, it's a passion for me. And somebody says if you overcommit to it and you rely on it as a job, 100% as your job and an income only, then it is a job. It's not a passion anymore. So I absolutely love it, and this year's really brought it to the fore. And you think, after having a really epic year of racing last year, and in fact I've had 10 really good years, Mickey, if I be honest, I've had 10 good years of triathlon racing and achieved many's a good thing. And being sick and injured this year hasn't really bothered me. My wife might disagree with that. She might think I'm a bit grumpy, but I have to say the buzz I've got this year with focusing a lot more on my athletes has been just phenomenal. And it's given me a wee taster of, look, maybe as I start to wind down my athletic journey for myself, I can like, I'm getting just as much a buzz out of my athletes performing as I do, and that's really special. And you know what, the journey from A to B, everyone's is different, and it's not just about podiums, because you can get as much buzz because you get more progress out of a beginner, than you do out of somebody who's at this game a long time, and they've all different challenges. So there's different buzzes you get. So it's the beginner that comes from nothing and does their first race is just unreal, and I just love that buzz, and hopefully sharing a few of those mistakes that I made in the early days. Just hopefully
You've
prevent
you've
them from sitting in a portaloo for hours on end.
you've had a couple of you're quite modest there with regards to your clients because you had some success in the Paralympics this year. Some of your clients did really, really well. Can you comment on that at all?
Yeah, so I've been involved with Judith McComb. She's a para triathlete, visually impaired, and um, she came to me, I suppose, last year, and she had a real ambition. She's an absolutely lovely girl, and she had an ambition to go to Paris. But at that stage, she wasn't really in the thinking of going. Well, she wasn't in the qualification slots at that stage, and yeah, so we just worked out a pathway of how she could get there, and she's got a great guide, Emer Nichols, absolute fantastic athlete and a super 70.3 athlete too. And so built a really, really cool team around Judith, really good support network, and she just kept getting better and better and better. And she had a few podiums at the start of the year, and then she went to Samarkand and won a world triathlon event in I think it was April May time, and that pretty much cemented her pathway to Paris. Um, and for Triathlon Ireland this year, there was no elite athletes qualified, so the focus was all on para, which was absolutely amazing because para hasn't really had the same. It hasn't been on an equal footing as the Olympics for years, but this year it felt different. Maybe I was involved in it, maybe that's why. But I got to go to Paris with Judith and to see it firsthand. And I couldn't imagine the Olympics being any more of a buzz. I couldn't imagine there's anybody else would have fitted into Paris to watch the triathlon. It was just phenomenal. Um, so she had a practice swim a few days before the race, and she took sick. And um, she was very unwell the day before it. She was on an IV drip, and probably a bit like me in my rugby days, probably shouldn't have done it. Probably shouldn't have continued on. But a life dream of qualifying for the Paralympic Games, of course, you're going to do it. So she gave an absolutely amazing account of herself and finished eighth in the world. Um, it's testament to her and her and Emer and the bond that they have as two athletes to do so well.
No, they did absolutely amazingly. I mean, I remember following the Paralympians on the internet and on Facebook and through the various triathlon feeds and whatnot that we all subscribe to. And to see them finishing in the top 10 was unreal. And to find out that she hadn't been well and she wasn't really maybe at herself and still to finish eighth, there's more to come from that, all I doubt.
Absolutely. And this weekend she's racing in Torremolinos at the World Championships. So keep an eye out for that. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting week. So it's the last race of the year, and there's a wee bit of extra hunger, a wee bit of extra bite this week. So it should be good.
Good stuff. Wish her all the very best. Um, Mark, that's us at the end of your journey for now. You've said what's next? What's next? What's 2025 have installed in for Mark Farquhar on the basis, of course, that the chest clears up and that you don't fall over and break another bone.
I'm getting rid of them all, Mickey, at the one time. So hopefully that's the sickness and injuries all over. I'm studying at the moment for British Triathlon High Performance Coach Level 3. It's not available in Ireland, so I'm having to travel over to Stirling over the winter now, and Stirling University, and I'm doing that. I'm also finishing out a Level 7 in coach development, so I'm a coach tutor as well, so teach other coaches, and I'm finishing that out as a Level 7, and so that's a bit of work over the next few months. So yeah, next year would like to hit an early season 70.3 and see how that goes. Maybe try to get up the rankings a wee bit on that and or push myself a wee bit more. Haven't confirmed location yet for that, but hopefully it's early season. And certainly going to go long course next year. So I think Portugal full iron towards the end of the year, hopefully. And maybe another 70.3 in between. So
Are you
But
still in the same age group category then? Are you still
no,
40, 45, or have you moved up
no,
into?
I'm moving up.
So are you not tempted then, because you're going to be the young buck in the new age group category? Are you not tempted then to go and give the old sprints a bit of a lash as well after the buzz that you got from last year, or
Yeah, absolutely.
different?
Yeah, I've been saying this. Look, I suppose in our club we have quite a few people who've done Ironman, and I've been saying this last couple of years, saying, guys, there's a huge community out there. Get out there and enjoy the local triathlon scene. So yeah, look, if I'm fitting well, the plan would be that because I'm race organizer for Tri Tyrone, I can't be doing anything big over the summer months because it's a 3 or 4 month organising a race, and so I'll not be doing no 70.3 or Ironman in the middle of the summer, and so I want to go and enjoy some sprints and Olympics then, and hopefully not put too much pressure on me. But yeah, looking forward to that over the summer months, maybe an early 70.3 before that, just to keep me honest over winter.
Happy days. Mark, if anybody wants to just connect with you or to get in touch with you with regards to any advice or coaching or anything, what's the best way that they can get in touch?
Yeah, look, I'm on Facebook or Instagram. Try Smart Coaching is there if you want to search up. So that's my handler on that.
Good stuff. Mark, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your journey. Absolute pleasure, and hopefully 2025 treats you well.
Thank you, Mickey. I really appreciate it. You've triggered some thoughts, some good thoughts. So thank you, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Good man. Take care.